Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Okay, starting with a new chapter called Hachsharat Kelim U'Mitbach, the kosher of our vessels and the kitchen. So he begins with a little introduction that we've spoke about in the past, but it's good to review always. כפי שלמדנו, הכלל היסודי בדיני הכשרת הכלים הוא כבולעו כך פולטו. The general rule is the way that it absorbed, the way that the vessel absorbed the ta'am, the flavor, that's the way it must give off and release the flavor. כדרך שימושו של הכלי באיסור, כך דרך הכשרתו. The way that it was used is the way you have to make it kosher. שלושה סוגי הכשרה ישנם. There are three types of kosher: הדחה, הגעלה, and libun. Rinsing, boiling water, and flaming, libun, hot flame. נבאר יותר, we will explain more. הסוג הראשון הוא הדחה במים. Rinsing with water is the first type. שהיא הכשרה קלה, that's the lightest form of koshering. שנועדה לכלים שהשתמשו בהם במאכלים אסורים צוננים. That purpose is to use it for kelim that became impure with cold, prohibited foods. שכדי להכשירם צריך להדיחם במים ולנקותם משיירי המאכל האיסור שנותרו דבוקים בדפנותיהם. Because by rinsing them, you need to wash them off and clean them well from any of the foods that got stuck on it. הסוג השני, the second type, הוא הגעלה במים נותחים. That is using boiling hot water. והיא נועדה לכלים שבישלו בהם מאכלים אסורים. This is for vessels that you use to cook, not just cold foods, but used to cook for forbidden foods. הגלה, לשון הפלטה. The word הגלה comes from הפלטה. הפלטה is to release, to emit. שהכנסת הכלי למים רותחים, by placing the vessel in boiling water, מפליטה את הטעמים שנבלעו ודבקו בו דרך בישול. You're able to get rid of the flavors that got absorbed in the vessel. הסוג השלישי הוא ליבון באור. The third type is the burning through a flame, through fire. שנועד לכלים שהשתמשו בהם באש. This is meant for kelim that was used on the fire. כדוגמת שיפודים, for example, skewers, or רשתות צלייה, or roasting pans. ההבדל בין שלושת סוגי ההכשרה, the difference between the three of them, שכאשר השתמשו בכלים בצונן, when you use your food with cold foods, שיירי המאכלים נדבקים בכלים באופן חיצוני. Any food that is attached to the object is attached on a very superficial, just on the outside. וההדחה שוטפת אותם מעליהם ומכשירה אותם. Just rinsing them, you get rid of anything that's stuck on. וכאשר השתמשו בכלים בבישול, but once you use the כלים with cooking, הבישול גורם לטעמי המאכלים להידבק ולהיבלע בכלים באופן חזק יותר. That causes the flavor of the foods to get stuck and absorbed in the walls more. ולכן ההדחה לא תועיל להם. Just rinsing is not enough. ורק על ידי הגעלה במים רותחים, dipping in hot boiling water, מסיסים את השומנים, it melts the fats, מפליטים את הטעמים, gets rid of the flavors שדבקו ונבלעו בכלי אפשר להפשירם. בכלי ואפשר להפשירם. That's how it's possible to be מכשיר them. וכאשר השתמשו בכלים באש, and when you use the vessels with fire, בצלייה או באפייה, either roasting or baking, so mean a direct heat, הטעמים נדבקים ונבלעים בכלים בכוח. So therefore the flavor now are being absorbed and stuck onto the walls of the keli with koach rav, with a lot of strength. ובאופן קשה יותר מאשר בישול, much more than when it's cooking in a liquid. מפני שהבישול נעשה עם נוזלים. Cooking means there's liquids שמנקחים את בליית הטעמים והדבקתם, that soften the absorption of the flavor and what is glued on and what is stuck onto the walls. Yeah.
The self-cleaning oven is equivalent to the flame?
Yes. מפני שהבישול, בנוסף לכך, more than that, הבישול נעשה בדרך כלל בחום שאינו עולה על 100 מעלות. The cooking usually deals with heats that do not rise over 100 degrees Celsius. מפני שהנוזלים שבבישול ממתינים את עליית החום, because the liquids in the dish are able to keep the temperature at a lower amount. But baking and roasting, which is done without any liquids, there is a lot higher heat that is involved. ולכן הגלה במים רותחים מסוגלת להחליט רק חלק מהטעמים שנדבקו ונבלעו בכלי ידי האור. Therefore, when you dip in boiling water, it can only release some of what was absorbed by the ur, but not a lot. וכדי לבערם צריך ללבן את הכלי באש. But in order to get rid of it, you need to burn it with fire. שתשרוף ותכלה את הטעמים הבלועים בתבנית או בשיפוד. That is burning any flavor that is absorbed in the pan or in the skewer. נמצא שככלל הגלה מפריטה ומוציאה את הטעם הדבוק בלוע בכלי, ואילו הליבון שורף את הטעם בעודו בו. הגלה is able to push out the flavor, but ליבון burns the flavor. Okay. Second part, מדרגות העגלה. Different steps, different types of הגלה. חובת העגלה היא לפי רמת השימוש בכלי. The obligation of dipping in boiling water is dependent on how you use the kli. Arba ramot yeshnan. There are 4 levels with regards to koshering using boiling water. Kli rishon ala esh, the cooking vessel, the cooking utensil that is still on the fire. Kli rishon she'eno ala esh, that's the pot used to cook but is not on the fire. Irui mikli rishon, pouring from the vessel that was cooked, okay, and kli sheni. That's already when it was transferred from the pot that it was cooked to a separate pot. So he begins. Kli rishon. Kli rishon hu asir shemevashlim bo ala esh. Kli rishon is the pot that you use to cook your food on the fire. Vechen also kaf sheme'arvim ba tavshil shemitpashel ala esh. It's also the spoon that you use to stir the contents that is cooking in your pot. That is also kli rishon. Im hatavshil haya taref. If the food in your kli rishon was taref, hachsharatam kederech beliatam. Again, the rule is we kosher it the way it absorbed. B'mayim rotchim b'kli rishon ala esh. So this spoon that I use to stir treif while it was on the fire, I must put that spoon and do hagala in a vessel that is on the fire, boiling water that is on the fire. That's how I kosher that. Same thing with the actual pot. Second level, kli rishon she'eno ala esh. Hu asir shaya ala esh, it was on the fire, ve'usar mimena, but it was removed. O shekibu et ha'esh tachtav, or the fire went out. Shehoilu kvar eno mitchamem ala esh, since no longer it's being heated on the fire. Chomo nechelash, the heat is weakened. Ve'en bekocho levashel ulavli ha'te'amim kemo be'et shaya ala esh. It doesn't have the strength anymore to absorb like it was on the fire. It's still hot, but not as hot. Ve'lachen, im ichnisu letocho kaf, if you put a spoon and you start mixing the treif when it's not on the fire, if I could kosher that spoon in a kli rishon, but even if it's not sitting there on a fire boiling. On condition that the water is still very, very hot, but it doesn't actually have to be on the fire. Third level is irui. Irui is ka'ara she'iru eleha tafshil taref mikli rishon. I took a tray, my treif pot that I cooked treif food in, and I pour it into into something else, into a dish. Ka'ara. That's called irui, pouring. Since the treif now has been separated from the pot that it heated up in, okay, it's not going to, that dish, that bowl that you poured it into, it's not going to absorb the same level that the pot absorbed in. So my bowl that I put in treif in, okay, that bowl was not the bowl, it was not the item that was cooked with, okay, but I just poured it from the pot into the bowl. I kosher that bowl with pouring. I boil water, and I pour water over it. Irui. Kli sheni hu akli she'elav iru et tafshil ma'kli harishon. I take the bowl and I put it into a smaller bowl. So now I have a big pot. That's kli rishon. I poured into bowl number 1. That's irui. Okay. Technically, that is a kli sheni with regards to Shabbat, but it's still irui with regards to kosher. And then I poured into a second bowl. That's kli sheni. If I pour hot water into a kli sheni, so he gives the following example. I pour hot water into a kli sheni, Okay, and then I take treif meat and I dip it into that water. And it's cooking now, it's kind of cooking in that water. So now that second vessel needs to be kosher through the level of kli shani. However, many people hold that the second vessel does not absorb and does not need to be koshered. Okay, since those are machmir, you should do it anyways. תבשיל בכלי ראשון שהצטנן עד שחומו ירד לפחות מ-45 מעלות. If you have a dish that was treif, okay, and it cooled down to a temperature below 45 degrees, אינו יכול לבשל ולהבליע טעמים. At that temperature, it can no longer cook and it can no longer as well absorb flavor. ולכן, אם הכניסו לתוכו כף, if you put a spoon inside that, הכף אינה צריכה עגלה, אלא די להכשירה בהדחה. And now all I got to do is rinse off this spoon because there's no need for me, it wasn't hot enough. Okay, we're in the middle of a chapter, but it's a long chapter. We're going to stop here and we're going to continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.